Hello everybody, I am Razorblade Mango, and I am, well, I'll just get straight to the point. Today is not a pretty happy day. It was officially announced that Sir Christopher Lee had passed away Sunday morning, and his wife, I think, finally decided to break the news today in order to contact members of the family so they would know before the public did, which I think is something you don't see very often these days, especially in the age of the internet. But they fooled me. I didn't even know about it until today. So, and if I don't know about it, then because I'm everywhere. I'm the god of the internet. But yeah, it sucks because this guy. And it was so weird. I was thinking about this last week. I was thinking, well, I wonder when Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee's been around a long time. I wonder when. I mean, I'm not looking forward to it, but I wonder when he's finally going to pass on. And sure enough, 1 week later, yeah, Christopher Lee has passed away. And if you don't know who this guy is, then I'm sorry, you've been living under a rock for years. He was, oh my god, for like a younger generation, he was Saruman in the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit Count Dooku in the Star Wars prequels. He was one of the Bond villains in the Man with the Golden Gun. I forget his Bond villain name, and I admit he was one of the better villains. He was also in The Wicker Man. He was in what the hell, Tim Burton. He was in quite a few Tim Burton movies, small roles of course. He was in, most notably being in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He was the voice of the Jabberwocky in Alice in Wonderland. He was the judge in Sleepy Hollow. So he's been around a lot. Of course, he was Dracula. He worked a lot in Hammer Horror. That's where he got his big start. Hammer Horror was where he really broke onto the scene in mainstream stuff. Particularly the Dracula films that they did. And I must admit, I've never seen any of the Dracula works. I know, because I'm not big on horror. I've never really dived into the Hammer Horror stuff. But yeah, I mean, I definitely want to see it now, because the guy, oh man, especially like growing up, the guy was huge. The guy, even back then, even when I was a kid and I saw stuff like Lord of the Rings and the Star Wars Episode 2, as a kid, even I recognized that this guy had power. This guy had a presence, and not just through his voice, through his like mannerisms and the way he just held himself up, and the way he would just stare somebody down with these eyes that are just so powerful. The guy had a real class to him, a real magnitude, a real sense of presence, and like I said, presence and power, and the guy was just so cool. That's the base line of Christopher Lee. He was just a really cool guy. And you get the sense that whenever he was in something, he never really took it as a joke. Even in like the minor roles in Tim Burton's films. I think the last role that he did for Tim Burton was in Dark Shadows, which is a very minor cameo. But even then, he was one of the better parts of the movie. He had this class to him that he took everything he was in quite seriously. And he never was like winking at the camera or doing this thing. That he never had this. He might have had his moments of egoism, which even he's admitted in the past. But he never had these moments that broke the illusion of whatever he was in. He always seemed like so grateful to be working. He always seemed like he was so into it. Whenever he agreed to work in something, he gave it his all. He just absorbed himself in whatever role he was in. And I like the best examples are, especially you can tell, because he's admitted that he's always wanted to be in. He's loved the Lord of the Rings. He loves the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, and he wanted to be in the Lord of the Rings movies with Peter Jackson. A relatively mainstream unknown director at the time. So to get somebody like Peter Jackson to work with Christopher Lee, I mean, that must have taken a lot of humility to take orders, take directions from this guy that's just, really all he did back then was just a bunch of, like little horror stuff, like Brain Dead and what the hell, like his other movies that he's done. Nothing really big or mainstream, but to put so much trust in Peter Jackson, that must have taken a lot of humility and awesomeness on Christopher Lee's part. And granted, that's one of his best performances. He's fantastic as Saruman. You couldn't have gotten a better actor to play Saruman. Every time he's in the movie, it's just, you can feel the earth shaking around him. Every time he just booms that large, powerful voice of his at this army, even though there's a really famous scene where he stands on the top of his tower and he addresses the large army in front of him. I think it's in the Two Towers that it happens. He just commands this, like I said, I keep saying the word presence over again, but even though it's a CGI effect, he brings this sense of epicness to that scene, and it's so powerful and wonderful, and oh my god, it gives me chills every time I see it. And another thing that I honestly forgot, and this is, I feel bad about this, that I forgot that he was in Kingdom Hearts 2. And he was the very first voice for Ansem the Wise. I mean, they've recasted that role to be, I think it's Corey Burton that's doing the role now. But, again, when actors are asked to, I mean, back then, and before, like, the big boom of the video game industry, where a lot of big actors are coming onto the stage now, you never really saw, like, every time actors were asked to be in a video game, it was kind of it's a side project, whatever, it's not that big of a deal, it's just a fucking video game, whatever, who cares. A lot of actors didn't really take it seriously back then. And he did. I think he was one of the few guys that actually took it very seriously, and he brought the same kind of magnitude and beauty and power to that role of Ansem the Wise that even when I was 13, and of course I knew who Christopher Lee was back then, I could still feel that in his voice when he played Diz, and who turned out to be Ansem the Wise. And I love that. Like I said, there's no kind of irony, there's no kind of winking to the camera, it's not like he's playing it goofy. He's taking the role very seriously, like any other actor, like doing a big serious film, big drama would. Every time there's big dramatic moments in Kingdom Hearts 2, Christopher Lee sells you on that 100%. Like one of my favorite scenes in the game is when he's talking to Roxas in that not the simulation, but in the Room of Awakening that Sora is in. And the way Christopher Lee plays Ansem the Wise in that scene, where he chastises and pokes fun at Roxas for being a mere part of Sora, for being like he says, my favorite line where he says, when Roxas says, who are you? And Ansem just responds back, I am a servant of the world. And if I'm a servant, that makes you a tool at best. And I do a terrible job of repeating that. But the way Christopher Lee delivered that line, oh my god, it's amazing. Even now, it's incredible. It's so, there's just so much. There's so much enthusiasm. Like, and again, another kind of adjective is enthusiasm and just a love of what he's doing. And it's just, I I feel sorry that I forgot that he was in Kingdom Hearts 2, but yeah, not anymore. And yeah, you know, he was great. And I think the last big thing that he was in, that besides oh, what the hell is it? Besides the last Hobbit movie, the thing I remember him doing was this documentary called Necessary Evil: The Supervillains of DC Comics. And it's not a good documentary. It's really not. But it's just cool to have a guy, people like Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen and Christopher Lee, these old school actors that come on and bring such gravity to this comic book stuff, especially when they're just talking about it. He was the best part of the documentary, where all he does is just narrate it. And again, you get the sense that he's taking this very seriously. And there's no hint of, like I said, there's no hint of sarcasm or you know, like I said, just like winking to the camera. Nothing. He's in it 100%. And he's just so cool. And it's just cool to see him go to these different things, like this kind of geek culture stuff, like Star Wars and The Hobbit and Kingdom Hearts. And for him to take it seriously, because back then a lot of people didn't. So I think he was one of the few that really recognized the power in this kind of storytelling. So I salute him for that. I really do. And you know, I'm gonna miss him. I really am. Yeah, the guy was a legend. I mean, a lot of people keep saying, "Oh, he was so underrated for his time and all that." I don't think so. I honestly think he got the credit he deserved. A lot of people loved this guy. A lot of people adored Christopher Lee. They had such high respect for him. People like Peter Jackson and Tim Burton and all these different guys. They had such a huge influence on his life. He was just that one of those kind of guys, and it's sad. I mean, yeah, do I feel as sad for him as I do for like people that are cut short tragically? No, admittedly not. But you know, because he lived a long, cool life. He did so many cool things. He was a part of so much good stuff. So he lived. And like all of us do, we eventually go. And now, and you know, that Christopher Lee is gone, he leaves behind him just this legacy of really kick-ass stuff to look forward to. Not even just in movies, but in video games, in music, in a variety of things. The guy was very talented. And you know, so that's for you, Christopher Lee. Bravo. Bravo, man. Oh, man. And I would say the same thing. Like, I put him in that same category as someone like Leonard Nimoy that came into a series, and I hate to keep going back to Kingdom Hearts, but my last thing is there's a lot of people that would look at Kingdom Hearts. I bet a lot of old school actors would look at Kingdom Hearts and go, I'm not starring in that. That's just a dumb kid's game. Well, whatever. Has Mickey Mouse in it? Give me a break. I'm an actor. I don't need to be in this stuff. But no. He and Leonard Nimoy came in, put their all into it, took it very seriously, and have left us with some of the most memorable work ever. His legacy will live on for years and years and years, much longer after he's gone. So, rest in peace, Sir Christopher Lee. Thank you for everything that you've given us. Thank you for all the amazing roles you've provided, all the wonderful memories, all the cool, really awesome childhood stuff that I got to see. I was exposed to him when I was a lot younger than most people. So, I'm very thankful I had that opportunity to see the man in action while he was still alive. So, thank you, Christopher Lee. And Yeah, rest in peace, man. You've definitely earned it.